Hello and welcome to our review of Northwind Highlander novels. Two books written by Blaine Lee Pardoe, one of the more famous and praised authors in the BattleTech canon. He is a quite beloved author that has a substantial amount of fans and following, and is responsible for adding important parts to the overarching lore of the BattleTech universe, especially regarding the clans. He left BattleTech a short while ago for what I have to call political reasons. But since I am not an American, I do not care, and I will try my best to give an objective review of the books. In them, we follow Major Loren Jaffray, how he joins, and his adventures with the Northwind Highlanders. The first book is Highlander Gambit. Back during the Fourth Succession War, Hans Davian achieved one of his greatest triumphs by intrigue and trickery. He promised the Northwind Highlanders the return to the planet Northwind, a home they had to abandon centuries ago. But not all Highlanders became traitors. A few continued to serve with House Liao. Decades later, Operation Guerrero is wreaking havoc in the Sauna March. Chancellor Sun-Tzu Liao orders Major Loren Jaffray, a proud Death Commando of Highlander ancestry, to go to Northwind and convince the Highlanders to break their relations with House Davian, and then to destroy them. What starts as an already complicated mission becomes a moral dilemma when they welcome Loren Jaffray as a lost family member and give him a sense of belonging he never knew he missed so much. But it gets even more dire when rogue elements of the Federated Suns administration make their own moves to destroy the Northwind Highlanders and take the planet for themselves. Loren Jaffray has to win more than one fight. The second book plays sometime later and is called Impetus of War. After joining the Northwind Highlanders and becoming the executive officer of a Sterling's Fusiliers regiment, Major Loren Jaffray was to plan an important mission. Hired by the Draconis Combine, they have to take the planet Wayside 5 from their Smoke Jaguar occupiers. The idea is to conquer this rather unimportant world in the periphery, to restrict the logistics of the Jaguars, and to increase the morale among the citizens of the Combine by achieving a victory against the clans. Unfortunately for them, the Jaguars are using this very planet as staging ground for a planned offensive against Clan Nova Cat. The elite Tau Galaxy is on the planet. Loren Jaffray has to use trickery and acting skills to save his comrades and to defeat the Jaguars. He does this by prodding an unwilling ally. If I have to assess these books and the skills of Mr. Pardoe, I have to say that he's kind of the anti-Stackpole. What Stackpole pulls off good, Mr. Pardoe lacks, and where Mr. Stackpole fails, Mr. Pardoe shines. For example, the plot of a usual Stackpole novel is rather good and keeps you very captive, while the plot here is weak and actually not that interesting. It's standard at best. On the other side, Stackpole has overly melodramatic scenes who could be part of a telenovela, and some of his characters are just atrocious. Here, Blaine Lee Pardoe shines because he has very well-composed scenes, and while of course some characters are just very, very good at what they do, they are always believable. You can see how they act and you can say, yes, that's possible that someone would act like that. So, not very Mary Sue-ish, especially compared to Mr. Stackpole. Where BLP really shines are the battle scenes. And again, that's another weakness of Mr. Stackpole, who is, I have to say, very bad when it comes to fighting between mechs. But Pardoe really knows how to describe a battle, how the opponents move, how is the situation standing, how is the morale faltering. And I have to say, his battle scenes are among the best I have encountered in all the BattleTech novels I have read yet. He also is quite limited when it comes to grandstanding and attitude, I have to say. But as I said, his plots are really weak. I really was able to see the ending after just the first quarter of both novels. There is no real twist, at least not a twist you can't see, and it's not the great ending you read the novel, it's the description, how the things are pulled off, and the little scenes, who are, as I said, quite well crafted. However, I have to mention that he has some bothersome side characters and semi-plots. A little spoiler here. He, for example, makes Sun-Tzu Liao a bit strange, because he presents the great danger that the Chancellor wants to destroy the Northwind Highlanders, and while reading the book, you always ask, why would Sun Tzu want that? The guy is cunning, the guy is smart. If he pries the Northwind Highlanders away from the Fat Rats, he should be happy. And then in the last chapter or so, we know that Sun-Tzu Liao was as cunning as we know him. He already planned that the Northwind Highlanders could exist. He just wanted them separated from House Davian. So Pardoe introduced a great moral dilemma that was not really necessary for the story to work. If he would have chancelled that and just said, Loren Jaffray has to pry away the Northwind Highlanders from House Davian, it would be just as good as a story, because the main conflict of the first book is the fight against the rogue Davian elements. And then in the second book, he has a side plot where Major Cullen Craig somehow hates Loren Jaffray and, I have to say, behaves like an ass. And it doesn't really add something to the story. The character was not really used by Pardoe later, so I have to ask, what's the point? Another thing that's not out of character but rather strange is that Pardoe loves ridiculous clan customs. For example, in his book, the Smoked Jaguars make the bidding process before a battle by throwing stars and knives against a board where the other opponents lay their hands, and I think that's extremely ridiculous and wasteful and not very clan-like. I have to call it Desgra. And somehow the Novocats have a monthly storytelling event that is on a platform over a fire. Very strange kind of barbecue, but okay. That doesn't destroy the story, it just is a big question mark while reading it. Another thing I have to say, I do not really buy Loren Jaffray as Death Commando. The point is, Death Commandos over the past lore and the source books were built up as the super loyal elite unit. Soldiers who would gladly give their life for the Chancellor. And then Loren Jaffray can be persuaded to break his honor by just having nice Northwind Highlanders around him. He turns his back on his essentially life mission because of fuzzy feelings. That doesn't sound very loyal elite to me. But that's just little small misgivings. And besides that, as I said, the character itself basically acts smart and is not overpowered. The books are also very useful if you want additional information about the Northwind Highlanders, Clan Novacat, and Clan Smoke Jaguar. In fact, it is the last clan novel before things get really crazy with Task Group Serpent, and it's one of the first literary depictions of Clan Smoke Jaguar in any bigger detail. Blaine Lee Pardoe is very good when it comes to all the military aspects. If you look mainly for military sci-fi, you will be very happy with him. If you prefer political intrigue and cloak and dagger action, he is not your best pick. There's also something I have to mention again. He kinda suffers a bit from the J.K. Rowling's problem. If you remember, the famous author of Harry Potter had her fandom and then was shunned because she said some political comments. And with Blaine Lee Pardoe, it is a bit the same. You can see that a substantial part of his fandom, who will defend him no matter what, are politically aligned to one side, while those who criticize him are firmly aligned to the other side. And I think that's a bit sad because the books and the works should be judged by their own merit and their own quality, and not because you like the political leanings of Mr. Pardoe or Mr. Stackpole, who, interestingly enough, is exactly on the other side. Again, I personally think that Blaine Lee Pardoe is a good writer. He's clearly among the better ones when it comes to BattleTech, but I would not call him the best. He is close to Stackpole, and you can pick whoever you prefer among them, hopefully because you prefer cloak and dagger and intrigue, that would be Stackpole, or military sci-fi, that would be Pardoe. If it comes to me, my favorite author is still Robert N. Charette, because his books have the right mixture. They have soul and they have just really great characters. And while he was just an amateur, he stands, in my opinion, above both professionals. But I would be amiss if I would not mention that Blaine Lee Pardoe was also behind the best BattleTech book of all times, my absolute favorite and a complete must-read. It's not a novel, it is the Comstar source book. One of the best source books that's out there, and if you just want to read a single book about BattleTech, it should be that source book. And if you do not want to read, well, you can just watch my video about Comstar and learn much about this organization.